This is a music review, and I'm reviewing the third album by the band called Spirit, which was released in 1969, and it was called Clear. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about Spirit. They were an American rock band that was founded in 1967 and based in Los Angeles, California. The original lineup of the group evolved from a Los Angeles band, the Red Roosters, which included Randy California. He was actually born Randy Craig Wolf on guitar and vocals. Mark Andes was on bass, and Jay Ferguson played vocals and did a bit of percussion. But with the addition of California's stepfather, the one and only Ed Cassidy on drums, and keyboard player John Locke, the new band was originally named The Spirits Rebellious, after a book by Cahill Gimbrand, one that I am not familiar with, but the name was soon shortened anyway to Spirit. So before returning to his native state, California actually played with Jimi Hendrix as a member of Jimmy James and the Blue Flames in New York City's Greenwich Village way back in 1966. Hendrix gave Randy Wolf the nickname Randy California. That was because he wanted to distinguish between his other band member, Randy Palmer, whom Hendrix named Randy Texas. Are you following me? Interesting story, isn't it? Anyway, back to Cassidy. He was recognizable by his shaved head, hence his nickname, Mr. Skin. And that became the title of a Spirit song on an album that we'll mention a little later. And he also was very fond of wearing black. He was born in 1922, so he was about 20 years older than the rest of the group. Although his earlier career was primarily in jazz, including stints with Cannonball Adderley, Roland Kirk, Thelonious Monk, and Lee Konitz, he had served as the founding drummer of Rising Suns, an early blues rock vehicle for Taj Mahal and Ry Cooder. And I've actually got that album. Didn't realise that Cassidy was on drums, however. In August 1967, the record producer Lou Adler, known for his work with the Mama and the Papas, signed the band to his label Ode Records, and the group's first album, Spirit, was released in 1968. The album had jazz influences and used elaborate string arrangements, and is the most overtly psychedelic of their albums to date. The second album, The Family That Plays Together, followed in late 68 in December. And at the same time, they appeared at the Denver Auditorium as the support band for the mega band Led Zeppelin. And there's more about Led Zeppelin a little later. Now, California's most enduring legacy may well be the finger-picked acoustic theme of the song Taurus. Now, this song was caught the eye of one Jimmy Page, who lifted virtually note for note from the song Taurus and used it as the introduction to Stairway to Heaven, virtually note for note. In 2014, as the story goes, Mark Andes and a trust acting on behalf of Randy California filed a copyright infringement suit against Led Zeppelin in an attempt to obtain a writing credit for Stairway to Heaven. Now, of course, young Page denied copying any of it, and the suit was unsuccessful. However, the verdict was overturned on appeal in September 2018, and on March 2020, the North Circuit reinstated the original jury verdict. So there we are, forever locked in time, Spirit and Led Zeppelin. So after the success of their early records, the group was asked by French film director Jacques Demy to record the soundtrack to his film Model Shop. And they also made a brief appearance in the film. Their third album, now we're getting to the meat of the review, Clear, was released in 1969 and it reached number 55 in the charts. And they followed it up in 1970 with possibly their most famous album, The 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, which is critically regarded as a landmark of art rock, and with a tapestry of literary films about the fragility of life and the complexity of the human experience. And throughout the 70s, five more albums were released, and I think I've got most of them. Farther Along was a particular favourite, and a huge double album appeared in 1976 called The Spirit of 76, which I also purchased virtually on the day of its release. The band toured extensively throughout those 70s, and uh, as I say, they became very much part of my experience on my vinyl turntable. But anyway, uh, they did a very famous show at the Rock Palast in Germany in 1978. And if you skirt around the internet, you could find a copy of that concert. But that was basically when California decided that he had enough, and the group disbanded in 1979, and that was really the ending of the first Spirit. And California uh, pursued a solo career from there on, and I actually bought his first solo record, which was called cleverly Captain Copter and the Twirly Birds. I don't know if it had anything to do with that a TV series about helicopters, but anyway, it's not a bad album. Okay, in late 1982, the band Spirit reformed, but the magic and spark of the 70s sadly was never found again. And though there was also some sporadic recordings of the band, but finally ended after sadly Randy California was found drowned off the coast of Hawaii after a surfing escapade. So that's my brief history of the band Spirit. Now I'm going to get on to this third album, Clear, and go through the tracks. So the album opens with Dark Eyed Woman, written by Ferguson and California. There's an awesome wah 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 guitar solo in the middle, very Hendrix like. The percussion and drums also a highlight with a driving rock beat, and it's got oodles of tasteful psychedelic guitar licks, which are very riffy and energetic. Second track is Apple Orchard, which is a group combination. Very bluesy, drug induced rock, West Coast type song, stamped all over this, and dominant vocals from Ferguson. California oozes electricity on guitar, and once again, it's very representative of Californian psychedelic rock. Up next is So Little Time to Fly. Locke is in on the right in here. It's a sleazy, funky beat with a nice hook and dreamy chorus throughout. More twin guitar sounds, possibly dubbed, I would suggest, and the vocals are more soul-like. And there's enough of guitar as we move towards the outro with uplifting harmonies, it has to be said. Uh, Life is short, is what this is about. Search out the beauty and be content. Very much part of hippie philosophy, I thought. So to track four, this is called Groundhog, written by Ferguson. Very much a heavy, funky blues with a southern Louisiana sound, with a touch of hillbilly feel about it. The lyrics are about the end of hibernation and the beginning of spring, a new awakening. And so to track five, Cold Wind, Some nice piano, very moody and spacey, brings us in. And the background vocals has a Beach Boy feel to it. It's very lush with some nice strings, but it plods a bit and is recovered by some of California's guitar style, very psychedelic at the end. Lyrically, it's about a relationship that has a cool sense of stubbornness. Last track on side A, because this was a vinyl, of course, is called Policeman's Ball. It's got a majestic piano. It segues into a music hall fairground jerky fun feel. It's very rhythmic. There's some honky piano, and it's very much fun. And the second phase is more chaotic than the first. But interesting, it has to be said. On to side two then, and the opener is called Ice, written by Locke. It's nearly 6 minutes. It's a spacey instrumental that would be spellbinding if you were on that LSD. Yeah, I'm sure. I've got some recollections of that drug, I have to confess, when I took it at the back end of the 60s. Yeah, 1970. Anyway, the strings neatly mesh with the keyboards. And it's got a very jazz lounge style to it. And they add in some horns. And I also love guitar playing by California. It's that Hendrix feel, of course. His runs are tremendous. And then let's not forget Ed Cassidy on drums. It's a polished sound, but it's maybe a touch too long. And there's some nice flute at the outro. Very drug induced stuff, this is. Second track is called Give a Life, Take a Life. And this is written by Adler, who's the producer, and California. Very Beach Boys influenced here with pop and strings amalgamation together, and those harmonies very much influenced by those Californian boys. I was going to say girls. And it's got a jazzy, lilting rhythm that takes over the track before the recycled symphonic theme appears towards the end. And then there's a bit of a mismatch at the outro, but it's very pleasant. Track 3 on side 2 is I'm Trucking, written by Ferguson. It's a rock and rolling song, pretty standard stuff. The keyboards up the pace with the guitar more pronounced. Lyrically, it's a travel song about a period away from the US, the return to that special feeling of being on the road. Next track is called Clear, the title song of the album. Another instrumental with strings that overpower the subtle guitar chords that drive the song. Develops into a bit of a classical jazz mood. Very self-indulgent, it has to be said, but at the time that this was released, this was meat and potatoes for me. Track 5 on side 2 is called Court. It's written by Locke, a very smoochy jazz piano piece, which is very lounge-like. Locke's very accomplished with Andy's bass, solid, and some experimental acoustic soloing from California, which sounds quite complex, if somewhat cumbersome. And then the finale, it's called New Dope in Town. It's a band combination. It's piano led it's a punchy sort of rocker blending into a psychedelic guitar melting pot of styles. And then the second phase becomes very jazz piano dominated. It's impressive before we slide into the woozy drug induced guitar extravaganza towards the end. And it becomes a bit of a jam, though less. And it may reflect the title Before the Punch Returns. It's full of ideas for certain, and it sets up their next album. So I think this album was an excellent piece of work, albeit it sort of gets a little bit crazy at times. but there's no doubting the talent of these group of these musicians, and it very much fitted the mood of the time in late '69. I suggest you get to listen to it, and you are now on Rumbo going to listen to it.